Hello everybody, welcome to the ICSR series, the most demanded and awaited video for all the freshers and experienced people who are looking to improve their knowledge and trying to crack the interviews. I have received numerous requests from so many candidates and I have put in all the efforts to make it as simple as possible and easy to understand the concepts. The ICSR case processing is very important, which makes the foundation and also the entry point in the drug safety and pharmacovigilance domain. If you understand and master this process very well, you will be able to advance and shape your career into aggregate reporting and so on. The ICSR case processing provides great potential and immense opportunities for freshers to start their career because most of the big pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies generally outsource this activity as these projects usually require huge resources to deal with large volumes of work. And also, many organizations have to deal with the challenges of quality and productivity, mainly due to the lack of proper training and concepts being not clear. So let's see in detail what is pharmacovigilance, definitions and terminologies used, and where do we get the data, how it is collected, documented, processed and then reported to the regulatory authorities. What are the tools and the safety databases used? As many of you already know by now, my main focus is always on the practical aspects rather than just learning some theory part. My intention is to give you tons of information on all my videos. I think that I have covered a lot of important topics on my videos, which I feel is more than sufficient for you to ace the interviews. Please watch all my videos till the end to get a proper and thorough understanding and comment if you come across any questions. Also, at the end of each video, I have included a small mock interview session where I will be asking you the questions and you can try to answer, which will help you practice your flow and improve your speaking skills. One more very important thing, if you are still in college or pursuing any of the streams in medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, PhD or any other life sciences degree and not sure of practicing and would like to know more about the career path and options in the pharma industry and you are in need of guidance, you can ask your college authorities or the concerned person to contact us by email or send an invite for a session to talk on pharmacovigilance and clinical research and the opportunities in the industry. Of course, the session will be entirely free and I will be happy to see you all and talk about in length about pharmacovigilance and clinical research. I hope you will enjoy all my videos. Hello everyone. Today we will be looking at the reporting timeframes of ICSRs for the USFDA and Europe. This is the most common question asked in almost every interview. So please watch the complete video. I have referred to the guidelines on good pharmacovigilance practices, module 6, clinical safety data management, definitions and standards for expedited reporting, that is E2A guidelines, IND application mandatory safety reporting from the US FDA website, guideline for post-marketing reporting of adverse drug experiences. Let's understand in detail what should be reported. We should report all adverse drug reactions that are both serious and unexpected are subject to expedited reporting. The meaning of expedited is as soon as possible. This applies to reports from spontaneous sources and from any type of clinical or epidemiological investigation independent of design or purpose. It also applies to cases not reported directly to a sponsor or manufacturer For example, those found in regulatory authority generated ADR registries or in publications. The source of a report, whether it is investigation, spontaneous or other, should always be specified. Information obtained by a sponsor or manufacturer on serious unexpected reports from any source should be submitted on an expedited basis to appropriate regulatory authorities if the minimum criteria for expedited reporting can be met. Causality assessment is required for clinical investigation cases. All cases judged by either the reporting healthcare professional or the sponsor as having a reasonable suspected causal relationship to the medicinal product qualify as ADRs. For the purpose of reporting, adverse event reports associated with marketed drugs, those are spontaneous reports, usually imply causality. That means for spontaneous reports, we will directly take it as related. Many terms and scales are in use to describe the degree of causality or attributability between a medicinal product and an event, such as certainly, definitely, probably, possibly, or likely related or not related. Phrases such as plausible relationship, suspected causality, or causal relationship cannot be ruled out or also invoked to describe cause and effect. However, there is currently no standard international nomenclature. The expression reasonable causal relationship is meant to convey in general that there are facts or evidences or arguments to suggest a causal relationship. Examples include for an expected serious ADR or adverse drug reaction, an increase in the rate of occurrence which is judged to be clinically important, a significant hazard to the patient population such as lack of efficacy with a medicinal product used in treating life-threatening disease, a major safety finding from a newly completed animal study such as carcinogenicity. Let's go through what is the minimum criteria for reporting. Information for final description and evaluation of a case report may not be available within the required timeframes for reporting outlined above. Nevertheless, for regulatory purposes, initial reports should be submitted within the prescribed time as long as the following minimum criteria are met. That is, an identifiable patient, a suspect medicinal product, an identifiable reporting source, and an event or outcome that can be identified as serious and unexpected, and for which in clinical investigation cases there is a reasonable suspected causal relationship. Follow-up information should be actively sought and submitted as it becomes available. Please watch my previous video which is made on the criteria for an ICSR. Now the question is, how do we report it? The COMS 1 form has been a widely accepted standard for expedited adverse event reporting. However, no matter what the form or format used, it is important that certain basic information or data elements, when available, be included with any expedited report, whether in a tabular or narrative presentation. The listing 1 in attachment 1 addresses those data elements regarded as desirable. If all are not available at the time of expedited reporting, efforts should be made to obtain them. All reports must be sent to those regulators or other official parties requiring them as appropriate for the local situation in countries where the drug is under development. For post-study events, although such information is not routinely sought or collected by the sponsor, serious adverse events that occurred after the patient had completed a clinical study, including any protocol requiring post-treatment follow-up, will possibly be reported by an investigator to the sponsor. Such cases should be regarded for expedited reporting purposes as though they were study reports. Therefore, a causality assessment and determination of expectedness are needed for a decision on whether or not expedited reporting is required. In the previous slide, I had mentioned about the key data elements, which is referring to the attachment. Let's look at what are the key data elements for inclusion in the expedited reports of serious adverse drug reactions. The following list of items has its foundation in several established precedents, including those of CIOMS 1, the WHO International Drug Monitoring Center, and various regulatory authority forms and guidelines. Some items may not be relevant depending on the circumstances. The minimum information required for expedited reporting purpose is an identifiable patient, the name of the suspect medicinal product, an identifiable reporting source, and an event or outcome that can be identified as serious and unexpected, and for which in clinical investigation cases there is a reasonable suspected causal relationship. Attempts should be made to obtain follow-up information on as many other listed items pertinent to the case. Overall, we have 6 sections. Let's look at each section one by one. The first one is patient details. So under the patient details, we need to mention about the initials, other relevant identifier like clinical investigation number, for example, gender, age or date of birth, weight and height. In the second section under the suspected medicinal product, we need to mention brand name as reported, international non-proprietary name, that is abbreviated as INN, batch number, indications or indication for which suspect medicinal product was prescribed or tested, dosage form and strength, daily dose and regimen. You should also specify the units, for example if it is in mg, ml, mg per kg, route of administration, starting day and time of day, stopping date and time or duration of the treatment. Under the third section, we have other treatments, that is for concomitant medicinal products including prescription or OTC medicinal product and non-medicinal product therapies, provide the same information as for the suspected product. Under fourth section, we have details of the suspected adverse drug reactions, full description of reaction including body site and severity, as well as the criterion or criteria for regarding the report as serious should be given. In addition to a description of the reported signs and symptoms, whenever possible, attempts should be made to establish a specific diagnosis for the reaction. The start date and the time of onset of reaction, stop date and time or duration of reaction, de-challenge and re-challenge information, setting whether it is in the hospital or outpatient clinic or at home or nursing home. The outcome should be mentioned with the information on recovery and any sequelae, what specific tests and treatment may have been required and their results. For a fatal outcome, cause of death and a comment on its possible relationship to the suspected reaction should be provided. Any autopsy or other postmortem findings, including a coroner's report, should also be provided when available. Under the fifth section, we have details on reporter of event, that is the name, address, telephone number and profession. Under the sixth section, administrative and sponsor or company details should be provided, including source of report. Was it a spontaneous report or from a clinical investigation? If so, provide the details. If it is from a literature, provide the copy. If it is from any other, please provide more details. Date event report was first received by sponsor or manufacturer, country in which the event occurred, type of report filed to authorities, whether it is an initial or a follow-up one, whether it is the first report or the second report, etc. Name and address of the sponsor or manufacturer or the company. Name, address, telephone number and fax number of contact person in reporting company or institution. Identifying regulatory code or number for marketing authorization dossier or clinical investigation process for the suspected product. For example, if it is an IND or CTX clinical trial number or an NDA number. Sponsor or manufacturer's identification number for the case. This number must be the same for the initial and follow-up reports on the same case. So those were about the 6 sections, the key data elements for inclusion of the suspected adverse reporting. Now let's see the submission of individual case safety reports. So which ICSRs are reported? This is a very important slide, especially for freshers and experienced. If you are attending any interviews, this is the very common and most commonly asked question. This is how the freshers are assessed, whether do you have at least some knowledge about the ICSRs. So please pay attention. Only valid ICSRs should be submitted, the first point. The clock for the submission of a valid ICSR starts as soon as the information containing the minimum criteria has been brought to the attention of the national or regional pharmacovigilance center of a competent authority or of any personnel of the marketing authorization holder, including medical representatives and contractors. This date should be considered as day 0. It is the first day when a notified competent authority or marketing authorization holder gets knowledge of a valid ICSR, irrespective of whether the information is received during a weekend or a public holiday. The timelines for submissions are based on calendar days. Please note this is based on calendar days. Whether if it is received on weekend or a public holiday, it does not matter. The day 0 is when you receive the information. Where the marketing authorization holder has set up contractual agreements with a person or an organization, explicit procedures and detailed agreements should exist between the marketing authorization holder and the person or organization to ensure that the marketing authorization holder can comply with the submission of valid ICSRs within the appropriate timeframes. These procedures should in particular specify the processes for the exchange of safety information, including the timelines and the responsibilities for the regulatory submission of valid ICSRs. They should be organized in order to avoid the submission of duplicate ICSRs to the competent authorities. The agreements usually the companies or marketing authorization holders will have with either the CROs or the consulting firms. These agreements can be either Safety Data Exchange Agreement, that is called SDEA, or the Safety Management Plan, which are the agreements usually done with the parties, and I am planning to make a video on SDEA and SMP, so please follow my videos to get the updates. When additional significant information is received for a previously submitted case, the clock for the submission of a follow-up report starts again from the date of receipt of the relevant follow-up information. For the purpose of submission of ICSRs, significant follow-up information corresponds to a new or administrative information that could impact on the assessment or management of a case or could change its seriousness criteria. Non-significant information includes updated comments on the case assessment or correction of typographical errors in the previous case version. See below regarding the distinction between significant and non-significant follow-up information for the submission of ICSRs in the EU. I wanted to give more information, so I have added one more slide. What is significant information? When do we consider this as significant or non-significant? Significant new information relates to, for example, a new suspected adverse reaction, a change in the causality assessment, and any new or updated information on a case that impacts on its medical interpretation. Medical judgment should therefore be applied for the identification of significant new information requiring to be submitted as a follow-up ICSR. Situations where the seriousness criteria or the causality assessments are downgraded. For example, the follow-up information leads to a change of the seriousness criteria from serious to non-serious, or the causality assessment is changed from related to non-related, should also be considered as significant changes and thus submitted as an ICSR. So if there are any changes, especially the ones mentioned here, it will be considered as significant and this will have to be reported to the regulatory authorities. So what is a non-significant information? In contrast, a follow-up report which contains non-significant information does not require to be submitted as an ICSR. This may refer, for example, to minor changes to some dates with no implication for the clinical evaluation or submission of the case, or to some corrections of typographical errors in the previous case version. Medical judgment again should be applied since a change to the birth date may constitute a significant modification, for example with implication on the age information of the patient. Similarly, a change of the status of a MEDRA code term from current to non-current due to a version change of MEDRA can be considered as non-significant change as long as this change has no impact on the medical content of a case. So when there are some typographical changes, that will be considered as non-significant information. If there are changes, for example, if there is a change in the age, if you have written it as the age is mentioned as 53 and it will be mentioned as listed event in the SMPC or the USPI. If you change the age to 6 years or 5 years, that will become a pediatric and this may become unlisted event. So whenever there is a change which makes any significant impact to the case, that should be considered as significant. If it is not impacting the case, medical judgment should be applied and you need to judge whether it is a significant or non-significant information. Let's look at the time frames of ICSRs for the EU. We have major differences between the USFDA timelines and the EU. So I have separated the timelines for the EU and for the USFDA. So whenever you are attending the interviews, whenever the interviewer asks you what are the time frames for an ICSR, please ask the question whether you are referring to the European or the USFDA timelines. So what are the submission time frames of ICSRs for the EU? This is for the EU. In general, the submission of serious valid ICSRs is required as soon as possible, but in no case later than 15 calendar days. Please note this, 15 calendar days after initial receipt of the information by the National or Regional Pharmacovigilance Center of a competent authority or by any personnel of the marketing authorization holder, including medical representatives and contractors. This applies to initial and follow-up information, where a case initially sent as serious becomes non-serious based on a new follow-up information. This information should still be submitted within 15 days. So the timeline is same. The submission time frame for non-serious reports should then be applied for the subsequent follow-up report. Non-serious valid ICSRs shall be submitted by the competent authority in a member state or by marketing authorization holder within 90 days from the date of receipt of the reports. So if a serious case becomes non-serious, you need to submit it to the regulatory authority within 15 days. But once the case is non-serious, the next reporting or the follow-up, if you receive any follow-up information, then the 90 days will be the timeline. I have just put this tabular format just for your understanding and so that you can remember. So whenever somebody asks you about the EU, you should say only two, that is 15 days and 90 days. So whether it is a centralized, mutual recognition, decentralized or subject to referral or purely national, kind of marketing authorization procedure, all serious cases should be submitted within 15 days. Member states where suspected adverse reactions occurred within 15 days. All non-serious cases should be submitted within 90 days. If it is from the non-EU, still you have to submit it to the Vigilance database within 15 days. Now let's look at what is the difference between the EU and US FDA reporting timelines. I have added the IND, investigational new drug application, and also post-marketing studies. For initial reporting, IND application sponsor must report any suspected adverse reaction or adverse reaction to study treatment that is both serious and unexpected. If it is unexpected, fatal or life-threatening, suspected adverse reaction must be reported to FDA as soon as possible, but no later than 7 calendar days following the sponsor's initial receipt of the information. Unexpected, serious, suspected adverse reactions and observations must be reported to FDA as soon as possible, but no later than 15 calendar days following the initial receipt of the information. So please note this point. Fatal and life-threatening should be within 7 days, and unexpected, serious, suspected adverse reactions within 15 calendar days. That was for the initial reporting. Now it is follow-up reporting. Any relevant additional information obtained by the sponsor that pertains to a previously submitted IND safety report must be submitted as a follow-up IND safety report. Such report should be submitted without any delay as soon as the information is available, but no later than 15 calendar days after the sponsor receives the information. All IND safety reports must be submitted on Form 3500A if it is from clinical trials, or in a narrative format if from animal or epidemiological studies, and be accompanied by Form 1571. The type of report, initial or follow-up, should be checked in the respective boxes on Forms 3500A and 1571. The submission must be identified as 7-day IND safety report for unexpected, fatal or life-threatening suspected adverse reaction reports, or IND safety report for 15-day reports, or if it is a follow-up IND safety report for follow-up information. This is for the post-marketing. The previous one was for the IND or clinical trials. To summarize, the following must be reported. All reports of spontaneous adverse events occurring within the United States, which are called domestic reports. Foreign literature and study reports involving serious unlabeled events. Increased frequency of serious labeled events. All must be reported within 15 days. Reports of serious unlabeled events must be reported to FDA on Form FDA 1639 as soon as possible, but in any case within 15 working days of the time of initial receipt of the information by the applicant. Determination of 15-day reporting period. 15-day reports must be submitted within 15 working days of the time of initial receipt by the applicant of the serious unlabeled status of the event, or of determining that an increase in frequency of a serious unlabeled event has occurred. Follow-up information for 15 days report must also be submitted within 15 working days of its receipt. The date of receipt should be entered into item 24C of the Form FDA 1639. This was for the post-marketing, not for the clinical trial reports. Time for the interview questions. So as I told you before, whenever the interviewer asks you, can you tell me the timelines for the ICSR reporting? So the first question you need to ask is whether it is for the US or whether it is for the Europe. So the commonly asked questions are: what should be reported? What are the ICSR timelines in the EU and for the USFDA? What are the timelines for spontaneous reports in the US, that is post-marketing? What is a day zero? Can you explain? What is considered a significant information and when do you consider it as non-significant information? How do you submit IND reports in the USFDA? What are the types of MedWatch forms? So we have two types of MedWatch forms, that is 3500A and 3500B. I will be making a video separately on that. If you have 2 to 3 years of experience with dealing with ICSR case processing, you are eligible to attend a advanced training session on aggregate or periodic reports. I provide trainings on DSUR, PSUR, PBRER, signal detection and management, risk management plan, as well as medical literature monitoring or literature surveillance. If you are interested to join, you can log into our website and register. Visit www.globalplacosolutions.com. Under contact us, you have the option to choose the training option. You can register with all your details and our team will send you the information on our upcoming sessions. You can join as per your convenience. I hope that the video was informative and very helpful for the freshers if they are attending any interviews. Thank you very much for watching and I want to wish you best of luck for the interviews.